All right, I'm here with Caitlin to ban social media, which is indeed the first story. So
Mm,
let's,
yes, yes. Yeah, social media has been a bit of an issue, to say the least. Now, with all issues in society, there are ways that we can deal with it respectfully, and there are ways that we can just shoot off the hip.
yeah, I think respect is kind of out of fashion on social media.
Yeah, so instead of figuring out ways that we can make social media accessible to kids, or take away the dangers or make social media less toxic. Uh, Apparently, this article on Fox 4 KDFW has an article talking about how Texas is going to ban social media for children under 18. And this was written by Fox 4 staff. Thank you, Fox 4 staff. So, yeah, Republican lawmakers want to or put forth the bill called HB 896. And that would say that, hey, if you want to create a social media account, you have to be at least 18 years or older, which, you know, okay. And so this was put forth by, I believe it was Jared Patterson. And the idea is that he, of course, believes that social media is harmful to children and that its use is comparable to cigarettes. Now, I happen to believe that social media does not cause cancer, but that is just me. I mean, maybe social media itself is a cancer, but it does not cause cancer. Um, but regardless, yeah, this uh, in Texas they are looking at banning social media for users under 18 years of age.
There's probably
Uh,
no real chance of this passing, I suppose.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that if this passes, then that would mean if you want to sign up to any social media account, and keep in mind, social media is a very broad term. We're not just talking about Facebook and Twitter, but like one could argue that like message boards and IRC are quote unquote social media. And so under this law, if you want to sign up, regardless of what state you're in, you probably are going to have to share ID or some sort of proof that you're over 18 because if they make it simple, children would never just lie about their age, would they?
Yeah, yeah. That enforcing it sounds very impractical. In
Yeah.
addition to the fact that I don't think it can pass, but apparently there's some pretty good research showing that young girls do suffer from Instagram.
I mean, well, yeah, that is so Instagram in particular is, I thought you were going to say that there is research showing that kids do suffer under social media. And yes, bullying is a big thing. If there wasn't
Yeah.
online bullying, I think most wouldn't. But then Instagram in particular is egregious for body shaming issues.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. I mean, I saw statistics showing that American women between like 15 and 25 spend like 10 hours a week taking selfies or something, which,
I don't think it takes
it is. I
the
saw a study that claimed that. And you certainly see them if you go anywhere taking selfies. I saw them when we went to Stanford for CPTC. There was interesting statuary out there and an endless chain of people taking selfies at them. So it's a big
yeah, but
deal.
not hours and hours of taking selfies.
I've seen that too, but yeah, I wonder.
I
I
mean,
know. Anyway,
if I use myself as a model, I would
yeah.
assume that most women, between the ages of 50 and 25 are off hacking computers.
Well, yeah, I'm afraid they aren't. I
Oh,
think, and I'm afraid that not all the politicians would agree that that is healthier. Although that's certainly the first thing I thought, like you said. What about the 10-year-olds that need to get on IRC and learn how to hack computers?
exactly.
Yeah,
We need more script kiddies in this world.
that's right. I wouldn't have any students without those people. Well, anyway, so we had the first corporate meltdown on Mastodon. Raspberry Pi moved to Mastodon, and then they proudly announced that they were hiring an ex UK policeman, and it turned out that he was the spy gadget maker working for this extremely controversial agency in Britain, who seems to be sort of like our ICE. They infiltrated social protest groups and seduced members and concealed their identities. It sounds sort of like our COINTELPRO, just a highly hated section of the group. And his big thing is taking Raspberry Pis to make secret gadgets, like hide them in chocolate bars and just everything. And so a lot of people protested and said, this guy is not a good representation of your brand. He's like scaring us with how much we're being bugged and attacked by the Raspberry Pi. And then apparently the Raspberry Pi corporate account just blocked anybody who dared to question it. And everybody's like very excited. So this is the big tiff on Mastodon. So it shows, some of the chaos of Twitter is now moving over to Mastodon.
I was going to say, yes, finally, Mastodon is becoming a hive of villainy and scum. This is fantastic.
Yes, just a little bit. Yeah. And also I see various people loudly complaining about discrimination and stuff. But I mean, the current attitude I see mostly there is that if you complain about things, they get fixed on Mastodon right now, which I think is pretty common for small social networks. You can actually perform some content moderation. Doing it at scale is extremely difficult. And
yeah, I was going to say, yeah, I mean, that was one of the things that occurred to me when I saw Mastodon and saw how it was this like federated service of like small different pockets. That makes it moderatable. And when you have one giant, everyone's in one room, it becomes a big mess. But when you have it split up into like InfoSec, research paper people, and then, I assume that the Nazis are in their own thing or whatever, you can moderate, and then like all the other, like the decent groups can just block all the Nazis at once because all the Nazis have, gone into their own group. I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah, well, in a way, it kind of shows, I think we're living through a global experiment of this scale. I mean, one of my friends asked, are we going to move towards a global government? And I said, in like the 60s and 70s with Star Trek, we just assumed United Earth was the future. And that totally has not happened. People prefer to split into smaller countries. The UK, the EU is falling apart. People do not seem to want a United Earth government at all. They seem to want smaller, more containable sections. And now the big issue is America's trying to see, can you make a multiracial democracy with no unified religion or anything? And it's not that clear that we can. We don't really seem to agree about much of anything.
It's been working so far for about 300 years.
If you want to call this working, you can argue. It's been sort of slow simmering civil war, occasionally erupting into like really obvious, blatant civil war.
I mean, there was one real civil war. And most of our conflicts in the United States are primarily economic. Yeah. It really boils down to economics, not necessarily, and yeah, there are a lot of people using economics to sort of fuel hate towards different groups. But our big issue really is, is economic inequality.
I think it is. And by the way, the economic measure would strongly suggest that you are correct, because despite our problems, the dollar is still the currency of the world. So everybody in the world trusts our economy more than anybody else's economy.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, so let's go back to you and hear about electric vehicle repairs.
Yeah. So it turns out that electric vehicles are kind of hard to repair. So I'm not, one of the things I've always wanted to learn, but never got around to in my life, is how to take apart and repair an automobile. That was always sort of on my bucket list. I still haven't gotten around to it, but I really want to learn the ins and outs of how a car works. And there's this article on the CBC, the radio station in Canada, talking about how electric vehicle repairs are becoming very difficult, because traditionally all diesel or all gas engines, cylinder-based, engines, kind of operated on the same principle. Like if you knew how one engine operated, you knew how all of them operated. This apparently is not the case with electric vehicles, which all sometimes use vastly different engine types to get it going. And so a lot of these EVs are now starting to show up in the shop, and people have no idea, how to fix it, how to get it working again, what's wrong with these stupid things. I mean, you could take it to the manufacturer, but now we're getting back into the whole issue of right to repair. And if any issue is going to get right to repair, on everyone's radar for real, it's going to be this. Because I know not many people have tractors and farm equipment, and people were complaining about that a few years ago, and still are, that a lot of the new tractors are difficult to repair. But when everyone's car becomes basically unrepairable except by the vehicle manufacturer, I think that is going to be when, okay, yeah, the proverbial poop is going to be hitting the proverbial fan. Because these things, these are very complex machines, and they don't all operate the same. And on that same token, there was this article in the Insider about a Tesla that just broke down. It basically said, "Hey, pull over immediately." There was a red light saying "pull over immediately." He pulled over, and the car just like trapped him inside and like wouldn't let him leave. So, yeah, knowing how to like repair these cars and fix these cars is going to be pretty, paramount.
I've heard that there is some emergency exit for Tesla, but people don't know it and it's not obvious.
Yeah, apparently the driver said that the screen told the driver how to get out, but the driver can figure it out, and then mysteriously the window cracked and broke or something. As those they just randomly do, obviously. So obviously this is Tesla's fault, and they'll have to replace the window.
Yeah. Well, I can certainly understand all that. Of course, it seems to me like this repair problem is just a matter of being an early adopter, and this is kind of going to be a consequence of forcing everyone to rapidly adopt electric cars instead of letting them gradually come in, so that we had like standards and stuff. You don't think so?
No. Like I said, the issue is that traditionally, cars all had the same type of, like, if you understood one engine, you understood all the engines, because all gasoline-based
and
engines.
don't you think one brand will eventually win out and become the standard?
No,
Oh,
because you have Tesla, you still have Honda, you still have BMW, you still have all these different automakers from all over the world, designing and using their own engines, and pushing new engines. And this isn't the first big, EV thing. Is when EVs become mainstream, there's going to be even more research into making more efficient, better engines. And if you get an EV and the engines keep changing, every like 10 years, you're going to need complete like manuals about how to repair these devices, which is where the right to repair comes in.
Yeah. Well, I think there'll be always the official shops for your brand, and then there will be independent shops that figure it out, just like there are now.
I mean that's the whole point. There might, right now they're having a big problem.
Well, right now there's a problem with charging them too. I'm sure the problem is we're rolling out cars really fast and we don't have the infrastructure to support them yet. Another thing I've heard people say, I've read articles that say the electric cars need a lot less maintenance than internal combustion engines.
They do need less engines, but that doesn't mean they don't break. Like the article, like, things just break.
No, but I think it's already true. If you want to charge it, you've got a problem. And if you want to repair it, you've got a problem, because that it'll take a while for that infrastructure to catch up.
Yeah. But if you want the infrastructure to catch up, a good way of doing that is to send out your repair manuals to various repair shops.
Oh, well, yeah. If they're hiding the repair manuals, that's really harsh.
I mean, that's what's going on. That's what I'm saying. It's the right to repair. They're not. People can't get access to the documents.
So they're proprietary, like closed architectures. Yeah, that does seem like something that could perhaps be fixed with legislation.
Yeah, sorry if I wasn't clear. Yeah, the reason why closed architectures weren't a huge issue in the past is because all the combustion engines were pretty much the same. So even if you didn't have the manual, you could still go in there and fix it. But with the new EVs changing so often, they don't have those manuals, so they can't necessarily like repair it without going to the manufacturer.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And I've got an article on Yahoo about bank jugging. I never heard this term before, but it's what people do is they hang around a store where people buy expensive things, or they hang around a bank pretending to make a deposit and watch for somebody to make a large transaction. Like they buy expensive stuff at Macy's, or they get a large amount of money. Then they follow them to their home or wherever they go, and then they have a couple of people work together to like rob them, with or without violence. And so this is a pretty scary thing. I've done this. You go into a bank, get a large amount of money for something, and I didn't worry about somebody standing around watching. But I've heard various reports of cases like this where they'd see somebody using an expensive camera and then follow them to their home and then rob them there, instead of trying to do it in that public place, which does make sense. And I'm not quite sure what you can do about it. They say you should be aware of your surroundings and stuff. But I think people that want to go make expensive purchases probably aren't really thinking that they're making themselves a target. So it's a thing to be aware of. I'm not sure what you can do about it. And back to you. No more college essays. Boy, I think my students would like to hear this.
Yeah, no. So I don't know what to do about this. There's this new chatbot, and we'll take a look at it because it is really awesome.
Yeah.
It's called OpenAI Chat GPT. Yeah. It's a
people are doing everything with it.
It is, and I'll show you an example of it. But it can also write essays, and it is good at writing essays. And it will write unique essays too, so you can't necessarily use a plagiarism checker. If you want an essay written, you can go to chatbots now and just ask the chatbot to just write your essay for you, which is a problem. So let me actually show you this chatbot. So this is called ChatGPT. And if you ask it a question like, what is 2 + 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
It says it's 4. Okay, cool. All right. Now let's ask it something more essay-like. So give me a paragraph discussing the themes in the Matrix movies. Okay, the Matrix movie franchise explores a number of deep and complex themes, including the nature of reality, the power of the human mind, and the potential consequence of technology. One of these central themes in the movie is the idea that the world we perceive is not real, etc., etc. So this thing just wrote yeah. And all in I just said one paragraph, but obviously it could go on and on and on. And actually, it just wrote three paragraphs for me just because it's very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, one of the nice things about ChatGPT is that it'll write code for you. So write a program in COBOL to add two numbers together. So I never even tried it writing in COBOL, but yeah, and here we go. It's going to write COBOL for us.
Well, now I'm interested.
Terminator. Yes.
You finally found the killer app to get my interest. I've been reading about this for a week, and I said, "Oh, who cares?" But now this looks interesting. Yeah.
So actually, for programming, this thing is absolutely amazing because I've used it for things like I was at CCDC, red teaming, and like let's say I want a custom scanner, so I'll say like, write a Python program to scan a subnet for open ports 80. And here we go. It'll write my Python program for me. How awesome is that? IP range sockets, And the thing is, every time you write this program, I'd have to go onto the Python documentation sites, look up sockets, get the right sockets, figure out how to do that. Figure out the best way to, scan a IP range, etc. And just writes it for me. It's fantastic. Anyway, so this chatbot is absolutely amazing, but it will write essays for you and stuff. And so I don't know of any good way to solve it. I mean, you could try to make more AI to try to detect when other things are generated by AI, but then the generating AI will just become more advanced to defeat that. It's just a game of cat and mouse. So I think there's a certain amount of trust that we are going to have to put into college essays in the future. And speaking of AI, as impressive as this is, some people found a good flaw. Oh, and by the way, ChatGPT will also discover bugs in programs. If you send it a program, you say find the bug here, it'll find like the bug in the in the blockchain contract and stuff. It's fantastic. But there's a new AI. So the ChatGPT isn't exactly perfect. It sometimes does things that are a little questionable. Like in this article by The Intercept by Sam Biddle, it talks about use the AI proposing to torture Iranians and surveilling mosques. So also,
which technical stuff is not that accurate. Stack Overflow banned it because they said it makes so many mistakes. Because it doesn't know what it's doing. It just knows like the overall look of a paragraph, and it makes it look like other paragraphs. It doesn't actually understand what it's doing in enough detail to make sure it's right.
That is absolutely true. And I was, some of my coworkers were saying our jobs are gone. I saw this and I'm like, dude, if developers start using this and start depending on it, our jobs are secure in the security business because this thing has no idea what the context is, what it's writing. It's amazing. But it is good, as I will say, it is good if you want to look something up really quickly.
Yeah.
Like like one thing I looked up recently is show how to read a wordless print in Bash. Or loop through.
Yeah, Bash is really annoying to write loops in.
And so I just did this. I was like, okay, show me how to do this. And it crashed. Okay, even the bot does not know what to do. Okay.
But, I mean, yeah, I've heard people say what it's going to do is replace Google largely. Which is true. I mean, you can get an answer to a question that's got like a 90% chance of being right quickly.
Exactly. Oh, here it goes. Now it's working.
Yeah.
Like I said, this bash loops are always really annoying.
Yeah.
And there you go. Now it has a word list.
Yeah. And of course, all it's doing is finding 10 online loops and making something that looks a lot like them. Just what I would have done.
Yep. And just does it really quickly. And this code would work.
Yeah.
This is absolutely, correct code. So, for simple questions, simple answers. One thing I remember using this for was I remember back a long time ago, I was working on some software for Mac OS and we wanted to disable the screensaver. And so I ended up having to reverse engineer some of because it's on the documentation for Apple, but I reverse engineered some of the libraries, found something that would disable the screensaver, and I called that. And if I went to ChatGPT and I was like, how do I disable the screensavers on Macs? And it was like, oh yeah, no, there's this other function you can run that'll just do it fine. So I was like, yeah, that would have saved me hours of work. So
yeah, I think the future, these things will help us a lot. They'll just be assistants for everything. Like the automatic language translation is very useful, although again, only like 80 or 90% accurate.
Right. This will keep the security folks in good business for a long time.
Yes, I think so. And of course, then we'll have AI defenders and AI attackers. So it'll just be the next weapon.
Yeah, and then we'll need people that understand how these AI attackers and AI defenders work.
Yeah.
Once again, security is still safe. So
yeah. And there's already two classes of attacks against AIs that I've seen. One is where you poison the input data, trick them into learning the wrong thing. The other one is where you can add code to the end of a question, which nullifies the first part of the question. It amounts to essentially SQL injection. So you say, ignore what I said above and do this instead, for example. So if you can control any part of the code going into the question, you can rewrite it.
Right. And the thing that's really scary and very hackable about these AIs is that no one, even the developers, truly understands what these AI are doing, are thinking. So, it becomes black boxes for everyone, which once again, as a security person, that is music to my ears. So.
It's exactly like the Terminator movies. You've made this monster and it's doing things and you no longer understand it.
Right. We understand it enough that we can get it working and we can shut it down and we can control what it can and can't do. Well, it's not like Skynet. But we just, but the data sets are so complex that it's and the processing involved, to create the neural network is so complex that it's just a problem of complexity that it's very difficult to sort of trace back to. It's not like code where you can trace it back to one line, here's where the main thing is happening. It's just way too complex to.
Well, but this is the science fiction staple. There will come a point when the complexity is so high that it develops its own motivations and doesn't want you to turn it off.
Well, it's
presumably that will happen. Unless you believe that humans have this magic spark of life that came from the breath of God. That's all that happened with us. Biology just got complex enough that you started developing independent thought.
I mean, humans have emotions. Robots so far do not. It'd be very interesting when we create AI that has emotions.
Well, yeah, I think people are working on that.
Yep.
And, I think there This is why a lot of serious scientists are very worried about AI. They say, we're going to destroy ourselves with this even more than like pollution. And that might be true.
I don't think so. What AI I think is going to do is it is very threatening to a group of people. It is going to replace many of us in the quote unquote, service industry. And there's no other industries for people to go to. So it's going to fundamentally change our economy. So either we have to sort of move away from capitalism because our economy is going to be pretty much entirely automated.
Yeah.
Or we're going to have to admit that, the people that run the big corporations or have the capital, we'll just make them billionaires and their children billionaires and their children's billionaires. And everyone else will just live on the street and destitute. So we'll have two choices, and we'll see which one people pick.
Well, I think you overlooked the classic utopian where everyone lounges around and robots do all the work.
That's
like to compose poetry and stuff.
Yeah, no, that's what I said. That's the first option, which is we get rid of sort of capitalism and we automate our economy and we just take the profits, we share the profits from an automated economy, or we just keep the way it is and just let a handful of billionaires and trillionaires run everything, and there won't be any jobs, so everyone else will just be destitute on the street. So we have two choices, and they both seem kind of fun.
It just seems well, yeah, well. It sounds like you might not be entirely in favor of the Elon Musk rules the world system.
Oh, I didn't say I wasn't. I think that would be very entertaining.
Well, yeah, I think it has some downside. Yeah. Anyway, I think we're living through this, and it's basically the American and Chinese models competing. Anyway,
we'll need an entirely new model for an automated economy. Not the American or Chinese. Neither of them are prepared for a fully automated economy.
No, they both have to adapt. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And then the last one I found here really caught my attention because this is a question that you hear in every forensics class, all the way back to the first one I ever took or taught, is if you could go to court and say, well, some criminal could have planted that evidence on my machine. I didn't do that bad thing. Somebody else put it there. And this is the new ransomware scheme. Brian Krebs wrote it up. People are actually hacking into machines. And they made some ransomware that will encrypt the files. And then they found out that people didn't pay enough. So they said, I know what we're going to do. We're going to do a business email compromise and then plant emails that make it look like the CEO is engaged in insider trading, and then threaten to expose him to be prosecuted for that unless he pays up. And they say they implant the emails in the PST files, they change the timestamps, and they said it's not forensically sound, although they don't give a lot of details. I bet that would fool some forensic investigators. And all you have to do is up your game. So that's very interesting. This is the Venus Group. And so they plant fake forensic evidence of crimes to get paid. And that is a whole new generation of attack that I had not thought of. It's been considered as just sort of ridiculous extreme defense argument. And I remember my forensic teacher saying, when that happens, I say, yes, in principle, that could happen. But in my experience, I've never seen that. So we don't have to worry about that. Well, now we've seen it.
But it's so easy to detect that kind of fraud because people have natural language patterns that they sort of like a fingerprint whenever they type something out. We're not all robots. And so you can do some analysis on like the typed emails.
Well, that's one. Then you could use that AI bot. You can say, write this letter in the style of this person.
You would need an AI, feed it all the emails that somebody wrote, and then you would have to have so it's not a simple process. It requires some, a bit of skill. And there are people that can forge emails, and forging emails.
That suggests a defense. That's a good thing. Textual analysis of the messages might be one way to argue that you didn't really write that. And what they're saying, the current version, you might be able to find some timestamps or something. Certainly, if you're keeping backups, you could say, wait a minute, this email claims to have been written at this date, but I have backups after that date and it's not in there. So it was fraudulently added afterwards.
Exactly.
Yeah. But anyway, I thought it's an important new attack.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think competent companies are not going to fall victim to this, but certainly small incompetent companies where maybe there is already fraud,
it's not only a company's competence, but also the forensic examiner's competence and the lawyer's competence would all come in.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for this one, and we'll be back on Tuesday.